Hey everyone, good morning. It's Ozark Tim. I'm on my last full day of our vacation. The rest of the days are traveling days. We're going to overnight in Laramie and someplace outside of Lincoln, Nebraska, on the way back to Bella Vista, Arkansas, where we now live. And behind me there, you can see my faithful steed, my Salsa gravel bike. I just went on a little gravel bike ride here at near our Airbnb. We decided not to go into the Grand Teton National Park again after yesterday, but just kind of cool our jets and spend our last day just relaxing, reading, going into Driggs and getting some lunch and just kind of calming ourselves before we go back to our hectic retirement life in Bella Vista, beautiful Bella Vista, Arkansas, with our grandkids, precious grandkids and precious kids and daughter-in-law and son-in-law. So we're looking forward to that. It's been 6 weeks. We started in Idaho, staying with my wife's sister and mostly being up in Idaho City and a big log house. And then we traveled to Central Oregon and hung out along the beautiful Deschutes River. Then we went over and visited some close friends in Newberg, Oregon, wine country. They live on some acreage, and we really enjoyed being there with them. And I got to do a little target shooting with my Ruger revolver, my light compact revolver, and I got to shoot an AK-47, so that was fun, and do a little bike riding and just visit with our wonderful friends, the Lutzes, who also visited us back out in Arkansas back in June. And then we got to stay on a wonderful floating home on a channel of the Willamette River right across from Sauvie Island. If some of you from Oregon, or especially the Portland area, know beautiful Sauvie Island. And just hiked to a beautiful waterfall in Washington State. Saw the wonderful Japanese garden in Portland, and just hung out and relaxed and enjoyed spending time with friends. These are friends who really play a critical role in our lives over the past several years, especially the last 2 years when I was going through a real struggle at my retirement. I'll probably get into that some other time when I'm back in Arkansas, because that's another story in and of itself. But then we moved on to Yachats, Central Oregon, on the beautiful Central Oregon coast. Some of you have seen my pictures on Facebook of that. And to Eugene to see my brother-in-law. And that's where I went to high school and college, by the way, and where I met Sabrina. And then we went up to Vancouver to visit Sabrina's cousin and saw some other relatives outside near Woodland, Washington, and Vancouver. Saw an old grist mill. Then we traveled up to Snoqualmie, Washington, outside of Seattle, and visited my wonderful sister and her wonderful husband, Brendan. And they took us to a brewery, and we got to try some beers and ciders, and that was fun. And then we drove to Missoula, had one night there, and just drove through beautiful Montana. I forgot how beautiful and just spectacular Montana was. And you're just always felt, at least Western Montana. I don't know a lot about Eastern Montana, but in Western Montana, every day you're just surrounded with big mountains. These are not like small Ozark Hill mountains where I live now, and they are beautiful. Don't get me wrong. They're beautiful in and of themselves. But man, there's something about the mountains in the West. We visited the old mining town of Virginia City. I'd never seen that before, in Ennis. And then we stayed a few nights in Gray Cliff, Montana, just outside of Big Timber, where my ancestors from Norway came and homesteaded. And that ranch is still in family hands. It's now, I don't know, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it's the fourth or fifth generation. It's now in family hands and being run remarkably well by my cousin Kai. And I got to see my other cousin who teaches in Park City, and many other relatives who came over, thanks to Kenny and Kathy and their wonderful hospitality. And then we drove over the incredible but scary Beartooth Highway. We were up as high as 11,000 feet, and I'm going to switch over to my sunglasses for a minute because my view are the Grand Tetons, but the sun is in that direction, and I'm getting hit with a lot of sun. So, if you forgive me. So anyway, we drove over the wonderful Beartooth Highway, and that area between Red Lodge and Cook City, which is in the northeast, really serves as the northeast entry point to Yellowstone National Park. I spent so many summers, I can't even remember how many, of my childhood camping, hiking, fly fishing, learning how to tie flies, visiting relatives on the ranch, turning over bales of hay and working on the ranch, learning how to drive a truck with my Uncle Howard, visiting my wonderful and very interesting at all times Aunt Nora, and James and Kenny and Kathy and all the relatives. I have so many great, wonderful memories and experiences in that part of Montana. So anyway, we traveled over the Beartooth Highway, and generally, I would say my wife is kind of afraid of heights, and generally, she really likes that drive. But for some reason, this trip was maybe it was just the direction we came to it toward. We came from Red Lodge up, and I don't know, I feel like we've done it the other way more often. But anyway, we took some great pictures up there, and along the way I spread my mother's ashes, both at the ranch and then a few other memorable places, favorite places of hers, both scenically and memory-wise, with fishing and other things with her own parents. And then we went into the park. I have to say, we didn't spend a lot of time in Yellowstone Park. I've seen a lot of Yellowstone Park, and it just seemed so crowded and congested. And granted, they are repairing a lot of the roads in the north that were damaged. You may recall last fall, I think, from all those floods. I mean, it just wreaked a lot of havoc in the northern section of the park. But I don't know what it is. The national parks, and the Tetons too, they just seemed so full of people. I don't know. I thought September would just be, the kids are back in school, but maybe just now that people are doing a lot of remote work, they're able to go to these beautiful places and work, outside the park or wherever they're at. But I thought I'd see only retired people this time of year, but I have to say I saw people of all ages, not so much kids, but I would say people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, just across the range of ages. But anyway, so I'm happy to be here near Driggs, Idaho. It's probably more of an obscure place for people to stay. Most people probably stay in Jackson or thereabouts when they're going to Grand Teton National Park, which is still my favorite. Even though it was crowded, it's still my favorite national park thus far. There's just something about the beauty, the cycling opportunities. It's just great. So anyway, today is our last full day, and I just got back from a little gravel bike ride. Oh, one thing. This morning, I was hoping my wife could finally see a moose, and we saw not one moose, but two, a mother and a calf, feeding like 30 feet, or I would say less than 30 yards behind our cabin. There's a barbed wire fence and farmland, and I think over here there's a bunch of aspens that are just now turning colors. I'll turn the phone there so you can see. Here, I'll turn the phone around. You can kind of see where I'm at here. The Tetons are over there. I don't know if you can see it. It's quite bright. But anyway, there we go. Little 360 view. But anyway, we saw a mother moose and a calf this morning, so that was thrilling. And we saw a big grizzly bear and wolves at the Grizzly Bear and Wolf Discovery Center, which I highly recommend if you're in West Yellowstone, that you go there. You can see grizzly bears and they won't rip your head off, and wolves, and they won't tear you apart in a pack or anything like that. You can see otters and birds of prey. It's great. It's a great place. I think well worth the money, especially now that I get the senior discount. It's wonderful. So anyway, I was thinking today, just about the sense of place that places give us, I mean, as I've been going around with my mother's ashes, just memories are flooding back, and I'm thinking about what would be significant places for her. Obviously, she's unconscious, she's dead. Her ashes are just remains of her, bones or whatever that have been turned into ashes. But I've been thinking about the importance of place. I often preface my videos by saying, hi, I'm Ozark Tim. And one of the reasons I do that is because I had a hard time leaving the West. I had such a hard emotional time leaving. And we did, we followed our kids and grandkids over. That's the main reason, the only reason really, that we moved to Northwest Arkansas, which is great. We're all back together and we're all in the same, live within a half hour of one another. So it's great. But I was thinking about how, for me, it's important to say that because it reminds me that that's my new place. I'm not right now, I'm not an Oregonian. I'm an Arkansan, or however you say it. I'm starting to fit in. I'm part of a Civil War reenactment group, and I've gotten to meet some great people. I've gotten to meet some wonderful believers at a church we've attended, and wonderful neighbors, just nice, solid people. And and plus my kids and grandkids are there, so I'm feeling more grounded there. And whenever I say that out loud, it reminds me that, that's where I'm at right now. I'm in the Ozarks, in the beautiful, wonderful Ozarks, and I'm learning about their history and their people, and it's great. It's wonderful. And, I was thinking, even when you go through the national parks, my friend has a larger version of this. It's this passport that you get. And now that I have the old man card, what my grandfather used to call the golden age card, I don't know what it's called now. It basically gets you into the parks when you're an old guy, 62 or older, and you just give them the card, you go into the national parks and military parks and other places. Even some of the wilderness national park areas we had to park at, I didn't have to pay for parking because I had this card. And you pay $80 when you're 62, get it. It's a good thing. But one of the things I also got was this passport thing, and it has pages in it, and you can put stamps. And whenever you're in a national park or a national military park, they have a stamp in the visitor center, and you stamp it to kind of prove I was there. And you can get these cool stamps and put them there. And then another thing I like to do is I get stickers. That's kind of all that I really need in terms of souvenirs anymore. And I've been putting these on my guitar case just to remind me of the places and experiences I've been having. Some people put them on their cars or trailers. I put them on my guitar case. And so anyway, it's just kind of reminding me where I've been at. But I was thinking, what spiritual lesson might I draw from today and my thoughts today? And I was thinking about this section and now I'm going to have to put my glasses on because I can't see small print Bibles. But I was thinking about in the book of Hebrews, there's this famous section that people call the Hall of Faith, because it's all about different people in the Bible and the faith that was exemplified through their actions. And then it kind of helps you to see, faith is not just some cerebral conclusion. It actually works itself out in one's life. And so, newsflash. But anyway, there's this part about Abraham, the first Jewish guy, the one who was asked to look at all the stars and consider the sand of the seashore, and God made this promise to him that I'm going to multiply you and your seed and into a great nation. And as you read the Bible, you realize that the ultimate seed was Christ, and that through Christ and belief in him, it wasn't just a genetic thing that he was talking about with Abraham. Yes, it included Jews who believed and kept believing, but it also includes Gentiles like me who are grafted into this Abrahamic promise, if you will, by faith. And it says about Abraham in Hebrews 11:8, by faith Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to the place which he would receive as an inheritance, and he went out, not knowing where he was going. By faith he dwelt in the land of promise, as in a foreign country, dwelling in tents with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. For he waited for the city which has foundations, whose builder and maker is God. Now, Abraham never inherited like the city of Jerusalem. He never inherited the whole nation of Israel. I mean, later on, after Joshua went in and so forth, and all the conquering and everything happened, then, the land was established and under David, and Solomon, Jerusalem had its glory and heyday. But this is talking about something else. The Bible talks about a new Jerusalem, a Jerusalem that's going to come down out of heaven and rest. Some people think it will rest slightly above the earth or on the earth, but regardless, it's the capital. It's the new capital of the world from which Christ will reign as King. King Jesus, Christ Jesus, Messiah Jesus. It's all about that's his title. Christ is a title, his kingship. He's the king. He's going to be the king that every knee will bow to, whether angels or demons or believers or unbelievers. Everyone will submit to his rule because God has assigned him that rule. And, even Jesus back in, I think it's John 14, he says to his disciples, this is John 14:1. Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions or dwelling places. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again. Let me say that again. I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also. So we could surmise that Jesus is involved in this preparation of this new Jerusalem, this new habitation for God's people. And it will not be populated by redeemed people until he returns. Because he says, and if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself. So I'm waiting on the second coming. I'm waiting for resurrection. I'm waiting for my place to be that city whose foundation and builder is God. And, as a person who struggled to leave a place I loved being near the ocean. I loved being near old growth cedar and fir and, what else? Hemlock. I loved the beautiful waterfalls in the Columbia Gorge and around me, and the options I had for hiking or kayaking or whatever, tasting wonderful Pinot Noir wine in the wine country, whatever it was to offer. Not so much the rain. You got kind of sick of that, if you had seasonal affective disorder, not a good place to be. But it was my home. I was born in San Diego, lived in Orange County, moved to Eugene, got my first job in Newburgh, worked in Portland. I did live overseas in Central Asia for a while, but I did come back. So it was really where I felt rooted. But I realized at my retirement, because that was another thing I think I fantasized about, that I would be at rest and everything would be perfect once I was retired. Well, it didn't really work out that way for me initially. I'll get into that later. But maybe, and this is my theory, maybe God wanted me to realize that all of those things were idols. My sense of place, i.e. being in Oregon, being on the West Coast, being near the Pacific Ocean and mountains and waterfalls, maybe that was just an idol that I had developed, and that needed to be crucified in my life. And we know as believers, God is always shaping and disciplining his sons and daughters. And, it's a crucifixion process. You have to die to certain things, whether it's a lust or something you think you need, or sometimes it could be a person, or in my case, it was a place. And I realized as God transformed me that I can actually have a sense of place in the Ozarks too, and with new people and new relationships and new experiences. And but my ultimate rest is not retirement. My ultimate rest is the rest that happens in the kingdom. You read about that in Hebrews, the rest that's yet to come, the R-E-S-T rest, the ultimate rest. So there's that you can be idolatrous about, or your sense of place. And I think they're kind of tied into one another. But it's really the new Jerusalem that God's people should be hungering and thirsting for and sojourning toward through the wilderness of trials and temptations and struggle and so forth. So anyway, that's all I have to say. I'm just enjoying my last full day here in the beautiful Grand Teton area. And I'll be back in the Ozarks, continuing on with my Tim in the Ozarks Villa Scriptura episodes. And, you know, if you're new to my channel, go back and watch my videos on the resurrection. I love talking about the resurrection. It's one of the core parts of the gospel. And yet, I don't really think people talk about it that much. They talk about Jesus' resurrection. I'll give them that. But they do not talk about the resurrection as the singular hope for God's people for life beyond the grave. And yet, it's what Paul, Jesus, it's what all of the apostles, Daniel, Job, Ezekiel, they all talk about it. And anyway, that's the thing that floats my boat. So I will say, auf Wiedersehen, adios, das vidanya, goodbye, whatever your language is. And we'll see you later, alligator.